is News Conference Extra with Conan Nolan.
Good morning and welcome to News Conference Extra, a special segment of Today in LA Weekend. Joining us from Washington is Chuck Todd, host of Meet the Press, which airs every Sunday morning at 8 o'clock. So, Chuck, let's start with COVID-19. The Financial Times, in an interview, Anthony Fauci, the nation's leading expert on contagious diseases, says he has not talked to the president personally in a month and has not talked to him or advised him on the pandemic in over 2 months. What does that tell you about not just the current federal response, but going forward toward Election Day?
Well, look, it seems that, well, I think the best way to look at it is that if you are hoping there's going to be a decision by the president to course correct, we know he doesn't necessarily wants to admit he was wrong about his initial handling, but if you're wondering, is there going to be, okay, we're going to try some new ways to tackle this virus, I think we got the answer to that question. That's not going to happen. I mean, the president has made the decision to try to look past this virus any way he can. I mean, just look at his travel schedule on Friday. He travels to the state of Florida, to Miami-Dade County, the epicenter of this pandemic right now in the globe, and he's doing Venezuelan politics. Barely not visiting first responders, not doing any of that, whether it's glad handing or not talking about the virus, of course, getting off without wearing a mask. He's going to do a fundraiser later in the state. He is desperate to move on from this virus. It's why he's, I think, trying to browbeat officials into getting schools reopened. But he doesn't want to seem to admit that he could help the cause of reopening if he would just do a couple of things: endorse mask wearing and provide a bunch of resources for local entities in order to help them reopen the schools.
Politico indicates that he's concerned about his weakening base of support, certainly among older white Americans, and as a result, he's thinking about going back after DACA, deferred action against regarding childhood arrivals. This, while the Conference of Mayors, including many Republicans, signatories to that, said, please don't do this. And I can only imagine what some of the down-ballot Republican candidates are thinking about this.
And I love there was one other aspect to that Politico report. They noted the president always seems to think he's got a base problem. The problem he's got is not with his base, but he does act like a politician that's constantly worried about his base, not worried about swing voters. And every time, it's interesting, every time he gets pressure, hey, you've got to course correct, you've got to pivot, his instinct is to go back to the greatest hits that he thinks that got him there. And he's like, okay, immigration. And that's always where he's trying to get back this conversation. He's tried to find different ways to get back to immigration. Look, he did a trip, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, to try to make a big deal out of the 200th mile of new border wall. And they put up a presidential plaque. They can't seem to get through to the president that, okay, every time we're telling you you need to pivot, that doesn't mean go back and just do the greatest hits from 16 on immigration. And this is one of those cases where this may be the penalty that the advisors around him are paying for telling him in 2016 that he was going to lose, and then he ended up winning. And I think this is the danger. He is a candidate who says, I won despite all the advice and all the people telling me I wasn't going to do it, and I did it my way. And so I think it just makes him less likely to listen to advice, no matter how bad his polls look.
Who's on the program?
Well, we're going to talk schools with the superintendent of Miami-Dade County Schools, Alberto Cavallo. We'll also be speaking with the member of the White House Coronavirus Task Force, Admiral Brett Giroir, who's basically focused on the logistical end of things, try to figure out why do we have a PPE shortage again and a testing shortage again. And then Larry Hogan, governor of Maryland, on the future of the Republican Party.
That'll be interesting. Chuck Todd, host of Meet the Press, 8 o'clock Sunday mornings. Thanks very much for taking the time.
You got it.
Up next, the former police chief for Los Angeles, the former police commissioner for New York City, William Bratton, on the cut to the LAPD when we return.